What is up to all of my little unicorns, new and old? It's your girl West Indie Ray, back again with another information-filled video. Today I'll be discussing the top things that I've learned in almost 10 years as a content creator that I feel like are still really relevant in today's social media climate. Before we get into the tips, I just want to take a quick second to thank Nikon for being the sponsor of this video. And not only is Nikon sponsoring this video, but all of the high quality 4K footage that you are seeing right now is actually filmed on Nikon's new Z30 vlogger camera. If you're wondering how I'm filming on it but also holding it, I'm actually recording on mine, and I borrowed this one so that I can show you guys what it looks like. I've only had this camera for a few weeks, and when I tell y'all there is no learning curve to get started, I was literally shooting high quality content that looks great in low light. I know you guys can't see it right now, but it's pretty dark outside, but the content is still chef's kiss. It's always in focus because they have a great autofocus feature that's actually touchscreen, which is pretty cool. And of course, it always sounds good whether I'm speaking using a microphone in the audio input or using the built-in stereo audio that comes with the camera. I plugged it out so y'all can hear it. Outside of the great specs, whether we're talking about the USB-C charging port that allows you to charge the camera really quickly, or the fact that you can record 125 minutes of 1080p footage without the battery dying, and even the placement of the battery and the memory card that allows me to switch them out without completely removing my camera from the rig. There's actually so much more that I love about this camera, but we'll get into all of that in a second. I want to get into these tips. Now, this isn't the video that's going to tell you to be authentic, because here on this channel, we already know that. This is the video that is going to help you survive in any social media era, and it could also keep you out of trouble too, and you'll see what I mean by that. The first section will be about the actual content and filming. In the second section, we'll cover how to stay relevant in any social media era, and the third section will be about money, but I've also included timestamps so you can go back and reference things as you need them. My first tip is for all the people out there who want to take their platform seriously but have not started for one reason or the other. Especially if you're one of those people who feels like you have to get better at editing or something like that before you actually take your social media seriously. Just get started. I'm gonna be real with you guys. In my experience and to my knowledge, just looking at the trends and looking at other people's social media, unless your platform specializes in cinematic videos or something like that, 9 times out of 10, the success of your content is going to be more about you finding your target audience and being able to hold their attention. We are in the age of relatable, casual content. So if you could find a way to resonate with people right now, you could literally build a huge community while figuring out all the other more technical details. I've literally built a community of like 500,000 people across all platforms just off of doing jump cuts, okay? This whole video, you're seeing nothing but jump cuts. That should tell you something. Start posting your content. Tip number 2 is going to be to choose the right equipment. 10 years ago, I knew nothing about choosing the right equipment for good video quality, nor did I know what good quality actually looked like. To prove it, here is a clip of me from way back in the day after I got my first DSLR camera. Y'all, I haven't even chosen what clip to put in there yet, and I'm already cringing for myself because I already know it's bad. Even aside from the extremely embarrassing eyebrows and makeup of it all, there's a clear difference between how my content used to look versus what I'm able to achieve now. A hot mess. But in my defense, I really could not have done better if I wanted to, because we didn't really have access to things like the Nikon Z30. Like, even our phones were like not up to par. We were playing a completely different game. And now we have super convenient little portable cameras with tripods and remote controls. We literally used to have to carry around huge, heavy cameras all day. Everybody knew that you were taking content because there's literally no way to hide it. And then what would happen is you get home and realize that half your content is out of focus because not all cameras had autofocus. I know mine didn't. And if you didn't have a camera that had one of these flip out screens like this where you could see yourself the whole time, there'd be whole segments recorded and you're like halfway in and out the shot, or you're like off-centered. You know how much time was wasted? These problems might sound a little bit silly to the new generation, but these were problems that we actually had. And I'm not only happy that I don't have to deal with that anymore, but that the new generation of content creators doesn't even know like what that feels like. I'm thankful for that on y'all's behalf. This next tip is about lighting. Many of you may have heard this one before, but if you haven't, before you invest on expensive lighting, check to see if there's any natural lighting in your home that you can make use of. I cannot tell you guys how much money I've spent on expensive lighting just to be sitting here right now, 10 years later, coming to you hot from my floor to ceiling windows. These windows are literally one of the main reasons why we decided to move in this place. I was like, oh yeah, this content is about to hit. Where do I sign the lease? So if you have big windows and you're just doing content creation as like a hobby or like a side gig or something like that, you might as well just spend that money on some good equipment like that Nikon Z30 and save the money on lighting. I'm telling you, it's not worth it. My next tip is going to to be a game changer for time management. If you're not already repurposing your content, what are you doing? If you're editing a 3-minute video on the Clock app, you can literally cut it in half and repurpose it to IG. Sometimes I even have a really long and in-depth version for YouTube, and when I upload pictures to Instagram, I always take my favorite 2 and put them on Twitter. 9 times out of 10, those pictures either go viral or they get like hundreds of likes. And that is how you cut your workload at least in half. Moving into my next section of the video, we're going to be discussing how to stay relevant. My next tip is going to be to diversify where people can view your content. Do you guys remember when the Clock app was just coming out and everybody thought that it was an app for kids, but then adults started getting on it? But there was still a good segment of the population that was like, no. Even though I was one of those people, you know, who was not really fully into it at the beginning, I still made myself an account and I still started to lightly post on there just in case. And I'm so glad that I did, because she's that girl now in the social media space. I still think that posting sponsored content on the other apps is more lucrative. Brands are more likely to pay more in my experience on the other app. But my point is that you should always try to stay diverse and leverage your popularity. If things change because of social, political, or even economic reasons that have nothing to do with you, this is how you will always remain relevant in the social media world. And that's coming from someone who saw the rise, fall, and or plateau of every social media app that has ever existed, at least in the world as we know it today. I'm just saying, open your horizons and don't put all of your eggs in one basket. My next tip is going to be to always keep your ear to the streets on the platforms that you utilize. These platforms change like crazy, so you want to be as up to date as possible on how the platforms are changing, what the new trends are, and the new features that are being pushed. This is super important because usually when platforms add new features, they actually favor creators who are using those new features. Sometimes they're even willing to incentivize creators to use these new features. I know somebody who once made $6,000 off of Instagram Reels bonus. I'm not even kidding, 6K. You could literally buy a car for 6K. It wouldn't be a great car, but it would still get you from point A to point B. So just keep that in mind. Piggybacking off of my last tip, my next tip is to get well acquainted with all the rules to the platforms that you're using. In my experience, you could get away with a little bit more on TikTok than you can on Instagram, and a little bit more on Instagram than you can on YouTube. So when you're repurposing your content, make sure that you are not just tailoring it to fit your audience on that platform, but you're also tailoring it to fit the rules of that platform. That way you're not getting copyright strikes, you're not getting demonetized, and you're not getting your content taken down. These next couple tips are going to be about money. Okay, especially if you have a sizable following, try to get a manager that you can trust as soon as possible. Notice that I said a sizable following rather than when you start making money, because honestly, if I'm being honest with you, if you don't have a manager, you're probably not making what you should be making online. I say this because I used to sell myself so short. I really did not know my value. And also, a lot of times when I'm online and I see content creators talking about how they used to sell themselves short or what they used to make versus what they're making now, I look at those numbers based on their following and they're still getting less. So a lot of people don't actually know how much they're worth. So it's really good to get with a manager that knows your worth and can advocate for it. Also, make sure that you are signing with somebody who you trust, somebody who shares your values for your content, and somebody who is a visionary when it comes to your career. My manager has spoken into my reality things that I didn't even dream of for myself. Also, when I first signed with her, she had me write out a wish list of dream brands that I wanted to work with. And since then, we've had so much success with getting partnerships that actually align with my brand and resonate with me as a creator. And I really believe that your dreams, whatever they are, deserve the same amount of dedication. My next tip is for everyone, whether you have a manager or not. As content creators who engage with brands, we should all have at least a basic understanding of how to read contracts. You'll be able to avoid so many issues with brands and even legal issues with having a general understanding of this. Some brands put clauses in their agreements that state that you can't work with any other brand similar to their brand during a certain term. Some brands put that they have 90 days to pay you after you've completed a project. Although these things are actually not uncommon at all and not necessarily negative, these are all things that you should know in order to make an informed decision on a partnership. My last and final, and probably even one of the most important tips, is going to be to set aside money for taxes and pay them quarterly. I know this is a really big and stressful topic, at least it was when I first started, so I'll make sure to include some links in the description box just as a reference for you guys so that you don't get overwhelmed. At first, the tax return that you would get for your W-2s might be able to be enough to offset the amount that you have to pay for your 1099 earnings, which is what most of us make as like freelancers or just people online. But once the abundance starts flowing in, or you decide to make content creation your full-time job, if you don't put your money aside and pay your taxes quarterly, you could end up having to pay a lot of money all at once during tax season. I know this sounds scary, but that's why I'm telling you, so that you can be well informed and that you don't get into trouble later. So make sure that you are up to date on all the rules for your state. Make sure that you are setting aside your money and paying your taxes quarterly. And most of all, don't say West Indie Ray didn't tell you. Another little bonus tip is to make sure that all of your passwords are protected. So there are my top 10 things that I've learned in almost 10 years as a content creator. I really hope that you guys enjoyed the video, and if I missed anything that you feel like is especially important, make sure to leave it in the comment section below to help your fellow unicorns. Of course, and as usual, if you made it to the end of the video, make sure that you leave a little unicorn in the comment section below, and always make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Follow all my social media accounts right down there, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.